Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Daki, and we are on the Shadow Priest, and we're standing in front of a training dummy. Can really only mean one thing. So on this video, what we're going to test is we're going to test a couple of talents on the Shadow Priests, and in particular, we're going to test the bottom row of the Shadow Priest here. So we're going to test the Legacy of the Void, Dark Ascension, and Surrender to Madness. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because over the last couple of weeks in Raid, I've been trying to see if Surrender to Madness is a viable talent over the other two. When you go to Icy Veins, when you go to World of Warcraft logs, when you go to Wowhead, even if you go to the Shadow Priest Discord and their forum page, you get this feeling that Surrender to Madness is not a likable talent right now. I personally like Surrender to Madness, and I would like to see the viability of it. So I'm going to do a couple of things. One is we're going to do 3 pulls. We're going to use Heroism on each pull. We're going to Food, we're going to Flask, and we're going to Double Pot on each pull. And what we're going to do is we're going to test Legacy of the Void, Dark Ascension, and Surrender to Madness. And what we're going to do is screenshot the damage and the DPS and the top couple of damage done abilities, and we're going to compare them at the end of this video and see if Surrender to Madness falls significantly short or if it's quite comparable in a reasonably controlled environment. Now, I understand this is not a raid environment, and I do understand that each one of these talents has their own spot in a Mythic Plus, in a raid, and in particular different movable sort of bosses. You know, Grong versus, say, Jaina, where Jaina's got a lot of movement, you might want Surrender to Madness, versus Grong, where you're standing still quite a lot, so you might want Legacy, the Void, or Dark Ascension. So I absolutely get that, guys. Now, what I'm not going to control here, what I'm not going to change is the rest of the talents. The talents are going to stay exactly the same. So things like Twist of Fate, Mindbender, Auspicious Spirits, they're all going to stay exactly the same. Now, I know this is not optimal. People will be saying, should have used Shadow Word Void. I get it. You know, should have used, say, Misery instead of Twist of Fate. I get that, but that's not what I'm comparing here, guys. I'm comparing just these 3 bottom talents, and the reason why I'm only going to change those 3 talents is because if Surrender to Madness falls significantly short compared to the other 2, then we know that it simply isn't bolstered by its output. But if it is very, very comparable, close, within, you know, a very small margin, we know that then these 3 talents are judged by movement or ability in the raid or dungeon environment. So I get that completely. So guys, with that said, we've got a couple of minutes wait because I was doing some testing before on our exhaustion debuff here. So once that runs out, we will basically do a pull timer. We'll do hero, we'll do a pre-pot, and yeah, we're just going to go straight into this, guys. Okay, guys, so my hero debuff is just about to wear off from my testing. So what? Just to clarify what we're doing right now, we're doing a 7-minute pull time 3 times over with these three talents down at the bottom here. We're going to use hero, we're going to use food, flask, and we're going to double pot, or use the pots as many times as we possibly can throughout the 7 minutes. Once it gets to 7 minutes, there's no more reapplying of dots, there's no more damage, that is it. And what we're going to do is screenshot the damage, screenshot the DPS, and the top couple of spells that I've done, all for all 3 talents down here, and then we're going to compare and talk about it at the end of the video. Now, there's one more thing before we get going. When I use my Void Eruption, it does cleave to this training dummy up the top here. There's no way of avoiding this. I've tried it as many different possible routes as possible. Actually, I might even just go over here and sort of see if I can avoid it, but for every angle I've tried, it cleaves to this one training dummy. It's only on Void Eruption, so it's not going to be like a complete cleave of all my dots and abilities, so don't stress. It is going to be equal amongst all 3 pulls. With that said, let's begin. So we're starting off with Legacy of the Void. Now, real quick here, Void Eruption's cast time is reduced by 40%, really cool. It may be cast at any time your Insanity is 60 or higher, double cool. Plus also Void Form spell damage by an extra 5%. It increases spell damage by 5%. So Legacy of the Void is what Icy Veins and a lot of people say is the go-to for that reason in alone, basically. But we'll compare them against these 2 others. So with that said, what we're going to do is we're going to do a DBM pull timer for 10 seconds. We're going to pre-pot and hero, and we're just going to go straight into our rotation. And we're going to go for 7 minutes. So I got to remember to start the timer. It will be 1 or 2 seconds out, but that's more than okay. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. We're going to go at 3, Coming in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop damage. Okay, stopped at 7 minutes, guys. Let the dots just run free on that. So we ended at 5.9 million damage at 14.2k damage per second. I'm going to screenshot these and we're going to get on to the next talent, shall we? Okay, guys, so that was Legacy of the Void. We're going to move on to Dark Ascension now, and Dark Ascension requires a slightly different rotation. It says to use it on Icy Veins, it says to use it off the bat, followed by your normal generation of Insanity, and then use it on cooldown back and forth, basically. So if it's off a cooldown, use it when you've got the least amount, or anywhere up to about 30 to 40 Insanity. So we're going to use it in that regard, a bit like Icy Veins says. Everything has to stay the same, the talents to stay the same. I've just refreshed my food buff, but everything else is identical. We're going to do the exact same thing, so we're just going to do a DBM pull timer for 10 seconds again, and we're going to follow the exact same rules, go for another 7 minutes. Let's test, basically. About 5 seconds to go. 4, 3, 2, 1, and stopping. Okay, so that was just on 7 minutes. We are down in DPS, so that was interesting. We're actually a little bit lower on DPS than the Legacy of the Void. We're actually at 12.2 at 1.8 million. Did we drop combat there somewhere, guys? It says that we might have dropped combat. There's the total there. Sorry, we did have to go to total because I'm looking at this going, we did reset the meters. I was looking at this going, what is going on? We're at 13.5 at 5.6 million. So we're going to screenshot this and then move on to Surrender to Madness. Okay, guys, so we've tested the first two talents and now we are on to Surrender to Madness. Now, there is a bit of a disclaimer with using Surrender to Madness. You take up to 90% of, hi there, you take up to 90% of damage when Surrender to Madness ends at that 1 minute point. Here's the problem with that is I'm going to have to do a dispersion stop macro, or I'm going to have to use Vampiric Embrace to heal myself up, because if I don't, then I'm going to take a lot of damage, and when I use Surrender to Madness again for the second time, I'm going to be so low on DPS that I'm only going to be able to use it twice in the 7 minute run, where I could use it multiple times. So my plan here is that I'm going to hopefully use dispersion and then a stop macro with dispersion right on about 2 seconds, so I'm not losing much DPS at all. So here we go, guys. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to do DBM, pull 10. We are going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to rotate in Surrender to Madness. Now, the way to rotate Surrender to Madness in is to get to your Void Form first, then use Surrender to Madness after a couple of seconds, very similar to your Mind Bender. So once everyone is ready, we are going to go straight again, DBM pull timer. We're going to see what we can do.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Just popped out a Void Form there. We're not going to get another one. We're at 5, we're at 4, we're at 3, 2, 1, and stop DPS. Stop DPS. It's because that Void for that Surrender to Madness. Okay, so we got an extra 1 or 2 seconds out there. So we ended up with 12.7k DPS and 5.35 million damage. We're going to screenshot this, and then, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk a little bit about how each one of those talents felt and what they mean in a dungeon environment. So let's get these screenshots done, eh? Okay, guys, so that is testing the 3 bottom talents of the Shadow Priest. I know that took a little while. With the power of editing, that should blitz through quite quickly, because what we're looking at here is the end result. And judging real quick, I'm going to put these up on screen right now, but judging by the end result, they're very, very close together. There's not a lot in it as far as standing still and participating in some damage. There's a little bit in it, but not significant. And what it does seem like Legacy of the Void does edge out a little bit ahead, but I wonder if that's because of this last little bit here where it says Void Form increases spell damage by an additional 5%. So I wonder if that is the contributing factor why it's taken most often and why the other two are not as much, and why it's suggested not to take the other two. Look, at the end of the day, I absolutely love Surrender to Madness. I think it's a cool talent. I think it should be improved upon, and I think that is what it feels like to play a Shadow Priest. I've got to be brutally honest, out of the 3 I just tested then, Dark Ascension felt the best to play. It felt the most, fun to play. It lined up with my Mind Bender. It felt like as soon as I got a couple of generated Void Forms out, I could just proc it. I just got straight back into another Void Form. So the first 2 on the talent row felt like I was in Void Form, more often. But obviously, Surrender to Madness, judging by the amount of Insanity stacks I got up there, did look like I was in Void Form longer. So at the end of the day, what does this really mean? Well, every one of these bottom talents here have a place in the Shadow Priest's arsenal. What I would like to say is that Surrender to Madness, even though may not be the best option for, say, a Mythic Plus, is most definitely the best option for, say, Jaina, Heroic Jaina, or something like where you've got a lot of movement, or the Monk Mage fight in Desire Law, where you've got that significant amount of movement and you need to keep a certain amount of DPS up. You can move with Surrender to Madness like crazy, basically, and have that high movement as well as performing enough DPS. So I'd like to say that Surrender to Madness has a spot in the Shadow Priest arsenal where the other two feel just as compelling. Is it viable to take Surrender to Madness in every single fight? And I would say no. Doing a couple of Mythic Pluses, it does feel like Surrender lags behind the other two when it comes to a Mythic dungeon or a Mythic Plus dungeon. It does feel like that. Further testing will ensue. I hope this will clarify a few things for people that are out there. Don't just go off of what, say, Icy Vein says, or Wowhead says, or what a forum tells you to use, or what a Discord page tells you to use. At the end of the day, it is what you feel like playing in World of Warcraft. And what Blizzard have stated many times in the past is that Surrender to Madness, Dark Ascension, and Legacy of the Void should come out at the end of that fight relatively close or similar, basically. These are tailored for 3 different styles of fighting, and it shows. It really does show. So what Blizzard are really indicating here is that if you need to move, Surrender to Madness is probably the best bet. If you need to get into Void Form quicker, then one of the other twos are the way to go. If you need to burst down some ads, then obviously Dark Ascension is your go-to talent. One thing I'd like to really state here, and in doing this, is that there is not a cookie cutter build all the time. And the problem with Icy Veins and Wowhead and places like this is they tell you the most optimal simmed talents for your item level. They say, look, this is the best way to go because this will give you every ounce of DPS out. That's all nice and said and done under extremely good circumstances, no movement or very limited movement and such like that. But this is the real world. We move for a lot of things and a lot of reasons. So guys, this has been a interesting video. I hope that's given you a bit of insight. It's given me a whole bunch of insight onto what these talents mean. I'm going to go over the screenshotted DPS real soon. Like I said, I will put these up on screen throughout me talking about this. But guys, thank you so much for coming and watching this video. I very much appreciate you guys being here. Thank you all for clicking and, supporting me on this channel. And until next time, everyone, have a good day.